Fred, my friend. Today we're going to be talking about major scales. Now, the reason why major scales are super silly important is because in music theory, when we talk about where we should judge what the quality of a tone is, we're talking about in juxtaposition to two different notes, creating a harmony. The triads we've been talking about are actually constructions of different harmonies. Like when we construct any chord out of our particularly given 4 or 5, the major, the minor, the diminished, and the augmented, what we find is the major has a 1, 3, and a 5, and we say it as such because what we've talked about, I think, up to this point, if you're following this channel. If not, if you're catching up on this, check out the other live Tuesdays, Ask a WAGO. They talk about circle fifths, how to figure out chord families, stuff like that. Just today, we're going to be talking about this wonderful concept. When we take a note, let's say like treble clef here, and we take a C note, and we take a D, E, F, G, A, and then B. Our last tone of which being the 8th is a C. Can we see that? I think so. If you're having trouble hearing or seeing, please tell me in the comments. Otherwise, yeah, this C tone, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, when we played these allist increment of tone between this note right here and then going up a half step or sharpening that, we would be raising the tone. That you could absolutely feel. No matter where that tension is, you could feel that minor second. Now, there are things called consonances, which feel great in comparison to those feelings of dissonance. So what we do is, when we're judging how to augment or how to diminish a note, we're just talking about a half step up in tone by going sharp, or a half step down in tone by going flat. So when we're creating just this major scale of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then a 7, all of these tones inside of a diatonic chord structure or just a key signature, they're relatable with a couple different ideas. Again, go back and watch these or Google just circle fifths, what you could achieve from it. What it does for me in the circle fifths, it allows me to kind of see when we have no sharps, no flats, 1 sharp, 2 sharp, 3 sharp, 4 sharp, 5 sharp, 6 sharps, and then 7 sharps. We could go the opposite way, and rather than doing perfect fifths, which would be C to G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it just happens to be one of the very pleasing consonances. And we'll talk about what it is in construction when we get into actually judging chordal structures. Working in tertiary means to be stacking things in thirds, which makes chords. So our first chord that's derived here, when we start stacking things in thirds, if we take this note, skip this note, and then put this note here, we would have the same note. Skip a note and take a note, put it up there. You can see how all these notes themselves are starting to like build in what we would call triads. So the whole point of this is to kind of become familiar with what your key signatures are and then utilize it with the circle fifths. So having said that, let's do another key other than C major. How about D major? So if we're going to take our clef, let's just do it in the treble clef. We've got our top line, second to the top, middle line, second to the bottom, and then bottom. We're just going to draw a quick bar to show where we're at. Put our treble clef, and then we're going to be throwing out the notes here, but we want to first put our key signature. Giving the F, because this is the G clef, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and then putting a space. Now again, I wanted to write out the notes, but now we're not starting on the note that's on the ledger line. We're starting on the note that is right above the ledger line, the D space. So D begins to E, E goes to F sharp goes to G, G goes to A goes to B, and B goes to C sharp. And then lastly, the last note that we have is on the second space from the top, being the D line. The scale itself is pretty jazzy. If you're taking a little bit of music piano, or anybody who plays any instrument should always be able to play the piano and be able to sing their notes along, even if it's really rough in the beginning. As C major was a C to D, D to E, E to F, F to G, G to A to B, B to C. all being a major, major second, minor second, major second, major second, major second, minor second. That is a way to do a construction of a scale called Ionian or major. There are many schools of thought on how to build that construction and what to name it as. One of the key takeaways that I've gotten from this is a lot of people would name something along the lines of your scales being this: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now that's a great way to talk about it, because no matter what key you're in, you could always put the letters there and then kind of judge, does it sound right? But that's kind of a backwards way of analyzing notes or chords. If you were to just hear, would you know how to go, oh, that's some sort of major or minor just based off of what you heard? The idea is, yeah, you'd be able to hear the unison between that 1 and 3, whether it's a major third or a minor third. So the concept is, I like to show this as just being a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then whenever we want to manipulate our do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, we're actually thinking about what our chords would have been if we had a 1, a 4, a 5. In this case, we've got a 2, a 3, a 6. These three are minor triads. Their construction is 1 flat 3 5, meaning majors have a construction of 1 3 5, minors have a construction of 1 flat 3 5, and then lastly this one, the 7th, has a construction of a 1 flat 3 and then a flat 5. Now if we look at it through the eyes of this, we'd be looking at this tone, meaning the next two notes we would skip a line, put a space, skip a line, put a space. In the key of D major, if we have, because we do, we've got a D major, an E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major, B minor, and then C sharp diminished. When we read this, we can look at this circle fifths and we can see its family chords just from here by going 4 notes away to get the relative minor. In each case, A's relative minor is F sharp. C's relative minor is A. G's relative minor is E. So the 6th of that chord you would memorize as being the tone that also shares the key. So 1, 2 sharps means, yes, we are in the key of D major, but it shares a key signature with B. So whenever you're listening to a piece of music, let's say you were listening, let me see, what instrument do I have here? Let's say you were listening to something like this. I was using G major, A minor, G major, D7. A major really didn't fit in there. As far as what we're playing here, I was playing in the key of G major. A major was kind of a far way away. However, I do know that I could have used an E minor. So rather going to that A major, I could replace that G major, do, A minor, la la. Now rather than an A major, try the E minor. Of on the melancholy side. Well, we have another minor in the key. So if we're in the key of G, we'd have 1 sharp, G, A, we're using the A. That A major, nah, but how about sliding up the A to a B minor? G major, A minor, B minor, A minor. Nice, that sounds groovy. Sounds like that Adam Sandler song from that one movie. Can you name it in the comment section? Anywho, when going through here, what happens when we stack our other notes upon these? We find ourselves building triads. This is the form that I was talking about, tertiary, which uses our combination of notes in thirds to start analyzing and realizing all of these fall in line with the triads. And again, triads are nothing more than just notes that happen to have substance together as a major third or a minor third. That's all these are. And then this last one is the same as the first here on the lines, absolutely. So, what are the notes you would say or ask? Well, we're gonna build those. For the first one, we would have our root. Now in the key of D, we've got a D right here. And we always build a chord from the bottom up, meaning you don't start at the top notes and try to do chord analyzation. You always try and go to the bottom note and do the chord analyzation from there. Makes a little bit more sense in the long run, just for the fact that you're going to be able to see a couple different things popping up in front of you that normally wouldn't pop up unless you read it from the bottom note, especially when you start doing chords that involve more than 3 notes. Chords that are called 7 chords involve a major or a minor 7. Also our extension chords, like using a 6, a 13, a 9, 11. We'll explain all those later, but right now we're just going to throw this out. Now when we go from D, we go to our 3. We notice that our 3 is an F sharp. And it doesn't matter whether you write it in upper or lowercase letters. In this form, I write it in lowercase letters. Minors are generally seen as being a lowercase extension rather than an uppercase. When we do chordal analysis, we're going to be using the Roman numeral system. And then first inversion would have a 6, second inversion would have a 4. When we move on to 7 chords, we would have it just as that would be the root position. We could also have stuff that looks like 4-2, which shows us our inversions. Again, way ahead of us. All we're looking at right now is triads, and we're building scales based off of the notation. So this first one, as we aforementioned, major scale, is called Ionian. Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. Those are the 7 modes that are derived out of just a major scale. Meaning, when we're talking about the major scale of D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major, B minor, C sharp minor. That was incorrect. C sharp diminished. All of these have a particular tone. And let me just go play those in the key of D so we can listen to those as well. Here's a D major. We have our E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major. We're going to have a B minor. We then have a C sharp diminished. And then it resolves right back to our 1 chord. So that D major, the last thing I kind of did there was this suspension, a play with a sus 4 and a sus 2. In a major chord, you call them susses. In a minor, you call it an iron chord. We'll also talk about that when we do extensions here, but our D, F sharp A is our 1, 3, 5. This is what we look at when we're looking at figured bass. Now again, ahead of ourselves, but we're going to talk about this later on being able to see these are all just stackings of thirds. D to an F sharp is a major third, and then F sharp to an A is a minor third, but more importantly, it goes from the D to the A as a perfect fifth. So we start analyzing what the intervals are between harmonies, and then we see those as being harmonies that get stacked by just moving them together as a minor second plus a minor second equals a major second. Well, a major second plus a minor second equals a minor third. Now I know, it just seems like a lot of wording, but the bottom line is when you're taking a gander at what these are, in D, D to E, that's our whole step or our whole tone. When we go another whole tone, we have F sharp. By the way, for piano players, the only major key in the white keys that does not do the 1, 2, 3 and under system is the F. It does a 4th finger, the ring finger, goes under with the thumb, absolutely. Then up 4, down 4, over to that same ring finger, or 3rd finger if you're going to walk it down and do a slide. But I like doing the fingers the way we're supposed to. Da, da, da. Anywho, doing the D, major second, we're going to be moving this up as having a major second. Feels weird, so it still feels like a kind of dissonance considering, but it goes through the motions of having a major third or a minor third. There is no D minor in the key of D, which means there will never be an F note in the key of D. Later on, when we talk about minors, we'll start seeing them as having melodic minor, and we'll explain why melodic minor means melodic minor, but that's, again, for another session here. So D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major, B minor, C sharp diminished, and D. When we play out those tones, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, they start to create motion with melody. The reason why it's important to know the motion with melody is part of a series of writing, listening for notes that have a pleasing sound to them. They've got a melodic harmonization where we're not just stacking chords like this, but the melodies that we choose for, the notation that we choose for the melodies, they become very kind of important because they define what we're trying to do. Hey, buddy, you should play your favorite mode if you have one. Oh, I mean, Hungarian minor is my favorite mode right now, I think. I'm not sure. I like them all. Locrian flat 9. I like that as well. Or flat 13. We could do a Locrian sharp 6. And what this means is we're simply taking notes in the names. Here, Lydian. When we have Lydian, it means 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7. So if we have a Lydian sharp 5, that just means that you do Lydian, but then you sharpen that next note. Here's what Lydian sharp 5 would look like. Let's see. In the key of D, we have 1, 2, 3. We would have had 4, but now we've got our sharp 4. Well, there's our Lydian. We would have wanted to go to here in our major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we're going to do a sharp 5 and complete the rest of the scale. 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, sharp 5, 6, 7, 1. It gives it a very pull towards one side of the phrasings or another. And honestly, this is too much music theory for one little lesson here, but most of our chords want to go here to the 4 chord or the 5 chord. The A is called the dominant. It holds all the tension. Whenever you go anywhere besides the 1, it always wants to go back to the 1. If you pull towards the 4 or the 5, you have something called the subdominant or the dominant, and that's where all the flow and the pull goes. So if I was playing something in the key of D, we had something like this. That E wants to go back to the D. But if I go to the 5 chord, especially as an inversion, it doesn't have as much gravitas as this inversion, but in root position, you always kind of feel like you want to go back. And I could talk all day about secondary dominance, so I'm not even going to get into that. Hey, thanks for asking that. What's your favorite mode? Put it in the comment section. I'd be very interested to hear. Pass. Is that what you go by? Pass call? I like that. Cool name. All right. Continuing on, because I had a tendency to just blah, blah, blah. Here is the D, F sharp, A. The next chord is going to be a minor based off of the E. E, whoop, G, whoop, B. Now what we'll notice is there is an E minor in the key of D. There's an E minor in the key of G. And there's an E minor in the key of C. All of these 3 chords are called the family of chords. When we look at what notes have that E minor or the relative minor of G, we notice that gee whiz, those are also in the chords that are right next to it in the circle fifths. Doubling down on why it's super cool to see a visual reminder, write it down every day, try and practice humming the notes, even if you're not a singer, and then play them on your instrument of choice. Explain the characteristics of my favorite mode. No, that was it, I think. Unless I've got a late comment section here. Anyway, I hope that answers it for you there, Pass. So, moving on, the E can be in these chords. Every time we have a triad, that triad is going to be in another chord. The only ones that really don't do that are the 7th tone, the diminished. Because they don't have just a 1-3-5 or a 1 flat 3-5 flipping the position of that major or the minor third. Well, when we go to that major third, it's a construction of a minor second, minor second, minor second, minor second, which means 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 minor seconds make a major third. Well, when we play from that last note and go up to the 5th, we have 1, 2, 3. Well, 3 minor seconds make a minor third. So if you move this note down by diminishing a half step, you then switch the foundation of what those were. You no longer have 4 minor seconds, you have 3 minor seconds, thusly making the distance between here and here 4 minor seconds. So when we play, we try to realize this on any instrument. We do it with our voice. The next note being the F sharp, again, we have to keep the sharps inside the key signature. So any chord that has like an F or a C for the key of D must be an F sharp or a C sharp in a major scale. That's what we're talking about today. The next note after here, we can do our whoop-de-whoop, or you can do it in your head, or you can just say F, G, A, C, B. You could go through the process of your 7 notes in the scale. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. When you get that down, you will start recognizing patterns of the F sharp A, and now we have to have a C sharp. If I did not include that C sharp, United States. If I did not repeat that, and I had an F sharp, I had an A, and I had a C, that sound is called an F sharp diminished. We're not looking for that, are we? We're looking for an F sharp minor, not a diminished. So the difference between having that sharp or that augmented fifth is really, really different there. Because if we have that flat 5 note, it makes the diminished. If we have a natural 5, bringing it up a half step, augmenting it from that, we would absolutely have the C sharp. Next chord is going to be a major. Now, as I said, we learn how to just write these out and remember what the notes are. GBD is a G major. It's in the key of G, it's in the key of C, and it's in the key of D. Why? These are family chords right next to each other. The reason why all these chords won't really be talking about F sharp, C sharp, B major, they're too far away from that. They hold no weight. They're not part of that family of chords. The next one we go to is the A major. That is A, C sharp, E, including the sharp. Next chord is going to be the relative minor. We've got a B, we have a D, and then we have to have the F sharp. Again, if we were to just play a B, remember, we do Tuesday theory music, and every other month we switch. If you're a musician and you play original music and you have a little repertoire, a little following on one of your social medias, reach out to me. My email is bookingwagohanaho@gmail.com. I'd love to see a couple clips of what you do. Show me your channel. I would love to have you on for interview series. I want to interview you now and then come back a year or so later and see where you've been, what progress is made, and what steps you took to continue the process of your own music education and playing music in your local community. If that sounds good, reach out. So moving on over. Going over here to the piano. If we were going to be showing that B, the D, and then the F, well, that most assuredly, when we do all of our keys, that is our B diminished in the key of C major. But when we have a B, D, F sharp, we're just showing it as being a minor chord. The B minor is the relative minor in the key of D, meaning they share the key signature. Hey, Jeffrey, how you doing today, buddy guy? Oh, I love the emojis. Have fun. Yeah, Tibble, we're talking about scales, but we're going through a longer explanation because I got 30-something minutes to do this here. Going through all the notes in the key of D major by writing out the key signature and then using the circle fifths. We've talked about how 5 notes away is how we find the next note. So C, D, E, F, G. G major has 1 sharp. That 1 sharp is F sharp. When we go to D major has 2 sharps. The F sharp, and then 5 notes away from that one, C sharp. So on and so forth. A has 3, E has 4, B has 5. We got a question about what was my favorite mode. Honestly, I don't know. I love learning about all of them and then putting them in the pretext of, like, I'll take an old song that I've been working on and then say, how do I change this minor chord or this melody or this cadence or this progression into being like a, I don't know, like a melodic minor, and how to change the notes so it fits with those notes. We're going to get into minors later. Today's about majors, and the final thing is we're just going to show you a little bit on the piano, how to sing and play, how to practice. I'm going to grab one of these instruments, a banjo, a mandolin, an ukulele, play a little something on how my string theory works and fingers, and then let you off your own devices. You can check back with all these live Tuesdays, Ask a WAGO. They always cover something, but it always stems around the circle fifth and music education. And I love getting questions because I don't feel so awfully lonely talking to myself. Thank you for being here today. For everybody who's chimed in, we still have another half an hour. If you have questions, please ask them. Our next one is going to be probably what I would call my favorite. We did our root, our tonic, our subtonic or root. We've got our mediate, which determines whether a chord is major or minor. And then we go into our 4th scale position. It holds some tension as we saw, but not as much tension as the 5th, which is the dominant, subdominant, dominant. And then we have our relative minor. The B minor holds all the same notes that the D major does. So B minor possesses 2 sharps.
F sharp, and C sharp. So if we started a scale from that note, those would be the notes that we would knock out of the ballpark. Let me see if I can put on something fun. Oh my gosh!
So if we're doing the B, and we go to C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. That gives me my B natural minor. It is the relative minor of D major. So the idea is, if you're playing a little groove, or, oh geez, if you're playing a little groove or a little jam and you got like something like, even that dissonance that we feel is lots of fun to play with. If we go out of key, you can hear how changing just one of the notes that's in any of these diatonic structures leads to being able to use the notes we're talking about in the key of D major. Playing around with the B minor is great. But the idea is you can play with the D major, you can play with the E minor, you can play with the F sharp minor, you can do the G major, any of these notes like G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Well, G major has all these notes. When we don't play that C there as a C sharp, we're referring to D major as now not having a major seventh, but having a minor seventh, which makes a dominant type chord. It's a good lending chord. Just so happens D major, 1, 3, 5, adding a seventh note makes an F sharp diminished, which is why it leads right back into a 1 chord. I know that's way too much information.
Anywho, how did that mirror look? Is that cool? Boom, 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 boom. Groovy. How would you play a chord something like an incense scale? That's a little over the top for this particular video. I will get to that, but that's probably like 6 or 7 videos down the road. In fact, there's a whole MODUS thing that I've got on this channel. If you type in the word WAGO and MODUS, M-O-D-U-S, it might pop up for you if the algorithm likes you. It's definitely in there. I do a little explaining about how to do that, and then view it through the eyes of just the standard progression. I haven't done any analytical work as far as like my favorite composers, besides just talking about like Debussy and Force, but there is a lot of good stuff with all those. Mir was groovy. Hey, Rachel, Howard, how you doing today?
All right, so our last one, I like to say C sharp, skip that there D, hit that E. So we've got C, and if you notice these, they're all the same. Like if you went here, C to E, yeah, I'm gonna use that C to E. Well, what comes after E? Well, here we go, E to G. This isn't rocket science. C, skip the D, play the E, skip the F, hit that G. Now, what's the C? You can't have a C natural, or else the last chord of this whole thing would be a C major. And that just does not resonate. You can't have something like...
When we do that, that's not considered the T-do. That's not the lending tone. What happens is we'd be using the tone in between the 6th and the 7th. Meaning, this is a major 7th, this is a minor 7th. By making that triad, based off of the C natural, a major chord, you're depriving the listener or the ear of that resolution that is like, T-do! It's a half step away. Smallest increment, so it feels good like it's about to fall off onto that note. When you deprive it of that and you make the distance not a minor second, but a major second, you're moving more towards that center of pull, that 4 and the 5. Hence, the tug of war and tension that we feel of consonants and dissonance really start to play when you manipulate this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 system. If you had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flat 7, or 5, 6 and flat 7, you would most definitely be playing a different modus structure. A major 3rd with a flat 6 in the 7th. Ooh-wee, we have the 6th chord. All right, so let's see here. Let's erase this circle O-5ths with my pocket full of kryptonite. Anybody remember Spin Doctors? Are they still around? Hey, Jeff, I'm loving those emojis. Dear goodness. How fun. Do, 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 do. My friend.
All right, what does this mean? This means that you could look at any scale and see what the first note is and judge
what the tone quality of all the scale preferences would be. They're stacked in thirds, tertiary, which means stacking thirds. Whether it's a minor third or a major third, those are our only two types of thirds. When we get into a little bit more of inversions and trying to see what we're doing on an instrument, like, here, I'll just write it down and I'll show it through example. Perfect becomes perfect, augment becomes diminished, diminished becomes augmented, major becomes minor. The reason why I write major with a capital M and minor with a lowercase m is minor is always shown in a lower character, hence lower Roman numerals. Augmented has a major third, just like a major chord. Therefore, there's no need to make it a small a. It's an uppercase A. In fact, when you do stuff, we sometimes just get rid of aug and we just put a plus sign. These are lead sheet notations or jazz notations. When we're talking about a minor, we put a minus, and when we're talking about a major, sometimes you will see a triad or a triangle. 390-degree angles representing the 1, 3, and 5 of each one of these little ducats we're talking about today. So, sorry, pocket. So no matter what we're doing here, what we're trying to do is walk away today with an understanding of how to utilize this on your instrument. So those of you who are in the comment section, what instruments do you play? Maybe I have it lying around here and I could pick it up. Other than that, I'm going to refer to the piano because it's the easiest way to hear it, lay it all out. Since that mirror thing seemed pretty cool, let's go back over to that. All right. So if we're going to be doing that D major scale, we would have D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. The harmonies that we have that arise out of that are considerably interesting because we've got a major third and then a minor third. We have a minor third and then a major third. A major third, a minor third, a minor third, and a major third. Now that is just the construction with a root note down here, and then it has a harmony above it. If we did it in C, we would just be moving them up. Hence, the reason why we teach from C major, it's not too complicated to show, one, the function of scales and how to move notes. When we find 1 and 5 on a piano, we could go up 5 and know that the note is going to be 5 notes away. Blah, 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 blah. So in the key of C, it's G. If we go 4 down, it's still G. A perfect fifth is a perfect fourth down. Every single key, same thing. So one of the movements that we do that forms inner hand independency is to pick a key like C and G, find the fourth. You can do different motions like counter motion, or you can do together, unisons. Well, not actually unisons, they're called perfect primes, they're P8s. When it goes up, you can do this, or you could form like melodies using the rhythms we know. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Anything's the limit in the key of C. When you start taking concepts and then moving them to another key, like D major, you can start utilizing the notes that are in the chord, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, or you could try moving any of those chords diatonically out of the key. Now, if you're a beginner piano player or you're a beginner at any instrument really, I would suggest trying to stay within the pocket of your key signatures in the beginning so you could have a greater understanding of what those chords and notes are on your instrument of choice. I'm going to play the mandolin really quick. Hope it's in tune. Close enough for music. So, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's the same in every instrument because we're utilizing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What? The reason why I do that on the third one, a whole step, is because there's 3 back to back. D to E, as we said over there on the piano, whole step. We're doing whole steps, right? The 3rd to 4th interval, 3 to 4, those are where your half steps are. There are only 2 in every major mode, the Ionian, and the major modus or the major scale known as Ionian is part of it, just the naming system that came after different provinces from Greece. So when we play different chords, the use of modes, or especially just major, is if we're playing something like a G major, actually let's keep in the key of D major. We're playing something like a D major, not that G's not in there, and then a G, there it is. If we're playing a D major, and we play an E minor to a G, D major, E minor to a G, if I switch all those chords with their relative minor, the D becomes a B minor. I could play it like this, I guess. Nice. It could go up to the high one. That B minor sounds great. We went to an E minor, so I'm going to play a G major. And because the G major was there, I'm going to play now the E minor. It feels a little hollow, so I'm going to play the D sus, or maybe a G sus. Nah, don't like that. How about an A minor? No, there's no A minor in there. There's an A major. Cool. How about the A major sus? Let's see how it sounds. D major. The relative minors, flippity floop. Let's hear how the other one sounds. Right to the G, I like that. E minor, and then the A sus. To A, yeah, I like that. So how would I play something over the top of that using all of those crazy chords in that progression? What I just did was I took random chords from the key of D, put them together. We had a 1 chord, we had a 4 chord, and then we had a 2 chord, and then back to the 1. When we changed it, we just had the 6 chord, and then we had the 4 chord, and then we had the 2 chord, and then we took the 5 chord, but we made it a sus, meaning we added the 4th of the key in the key of A, B, C sharp, D. Also, I noticed that a lot of my students and a lot of people that comment on here, they say, how do you know what the notes are in all these triads? You write them down. This is exactly how I learned what every note is in every scale. Start simple, 1 a week. If you could do 1 a week, there's only 15. You'll be done, do it again. I guarantee you, by the 50th time you've written these scales down, you will see the differences in which scales and keys have the same things. You will be able to relate E flat major with B flat instantly. So, being able to play something really cool over the top of here, I would play maybe a D major scale. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. When I'm doing that, I notice that I know that G major does not have that C sharp. If I were to play G, A, B, C sharp, and keep the F sharp, now I've got a mode in the key of G called G Lydian. I still keep the F sharp, which is in the key, but by raising the 4th, the modus that's arisen out of it is this one. I'm going to do another video that talks about the moduses that are not the major scale. But for soloing with the D major, going to an E minor, and then a G major, I would keep it simple. I would play the D. I would play that G and omit the C altogether. Meaning I would probably prefer to play like a G major that doesn't have the C in it. I know that a pentatonic system is the 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 of a chord. So G, A, B is 1, 2, 3, D, then E. So I would most definitely use pentatonics and avoid that C or C sharp altogether. And then when we move to the E minor, because G major and E minor have charismatically the same key signature, I would, when doing a G major pentatonic, that just happens to be an E minor pentatonic at the same time, depending on what starting tone you start your phrasings with. It's a little harder of a concept to start off here with, but it's a good thing to end on here today to explain why we use Ionian to find other key signatures. So if we're in the key of D right here, and we're learning how to play a little bit of melody, and we're learning how to play a little bit of song, what we can do is show this through the eyes of another key, why we use the circle of fifths, and then how to use these scales to make melodies. Each one of these notes that are inside of this scale for the key of D major are a representation of pitches and mathematical tones which serve the purpose of one thing. When they're combined, they invoke emotion. Simple as it is. Some people say that chords are the things that invoke emotion. Some people say it's the progressions. Other people say it's the feeling of the cadences, of the flow of the ha na 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 ha na 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 ha na 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 ha na. The dynamics, the feeling of the notes, whether they're long and boisterous or short and detached like staccato. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, because when you start doing chord analyzation and song analyzation, and you start like looking at your own music and going, this thing I wrote is a piece of garbage. And then you go back and you look at it and be like, what can I do to change this? Some songs aren't salvageable, some are. When you write over a couple thousand, you start to realize it's just a point of learning the process on how to write. So, blah, blah, blah. If anybody's in the comment section right now, please throw out a key signature besides D or C, and we're going to work with that. Use our number system, our whole tone and halftone series to see what a major scale is, Ionian, in a key, and then we're going to use it for a practical application of being able to just write a little something. Buddy, you are talking about advanced musical theories with N and tonic. If you want, check out the channel. Maybe you'll like some of my negative harmony nonsense. But I would say keep watching these if you can, if you have time on Tuesdays, and pop in when we are talking about that. I would love to tickle your brain. Seems like you know exactly what you're talking about here. Very cool. However, we have a D. I just said D. You have a lowercase d. Maybe the answer to the question was a D minor? Or that was, yeah. So what are we doing? We're working in the key of F. That sounds pretty good to me. Key of D minor, key of F. All right, so if we throw up our circle of fifths, we can go C. Now, instead of going with the sharps, let's go flats this time. All right, 4 notes away from C, C, D, E, F. Boom. F, G, A, B. Now, we said this is a circle of flats, so all of these are going to have a flat except for the F. When we keep going around here, what's next? We have our E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and then lastly C flat. Why? There are only 7 of them. 7 sharps, 7 flats, and then the key we teach from, C major. No sharps and no flats. It's kind of like the middle point. Referring to the aforementioned negative harmony, for those of you who have ever heard that, a great way to do the circle fifths, if you are not familiar with negative harmony, is to start seeing the circle fifths as something arbitrary. You can shift all the letters over. You can even draw a line down the middle and start pairing letters on each and other side to show different vast distances between intervals. You could draw shapes in the middle of here, like a triangle or a square, and those actually, if you play the notes that are right next to them, will give you a sort of system or a series to start hearing things like tritones or whole tone series. Very cool when you start combining music and math, if you want to go off that deep end. There are plenty of channels that talk about that. Also, on this channel, I just talk through stuff. I don't really put up editing. I don't put up charts and stuff like that. Closest thing I get is drawing it on here and doing interaction. So I hope this is cool. If you like it, thumbs up, subscribe, put something cool. All right, so if we're doing this, one of the things that I'd like to show here, because I like to show it in each one of these, last time we did the sharps, we had talked about D major. D major had how many sharps there? And B minor, its relative minor, had how many? It had 2. All right. Well, there are 7 notes in a diatonic scale. 7 in a scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Take away those 2 sharps, you're left with 5 flats. There are 5 flats in the key of D flat. If we go to the key of G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. C has none. F has 1 flat. That flat is B flat. It's already laid out for you. Right there. And then when we go to our next one, E flat has how many flats? None. 1, 2, 3. Oh, buddy. So what we're seeing here is the circle force lays out all of our notes for us. And then the note that's right in front of it is the note that is our flat. It is the 4th scale degree of each one of these. Therefore, if we went C, absolutely correct. 3, beautiful. So if we went all the way through here and we found G flat, how many sharps or flats does the key of G flat have? Well, let me do this. Just gonna get rid of this nonsense. G, G, A, B, C, 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 D, 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 D. Now here, boom, boomity, boom, boom, blam. The key of G flat has, ooh, we got a 7 here. Now watch this. None in C, 1 in F, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 flats in the key of G flat. Now check it out. The first flat is not this one. It is not this one. It is the B flat. The B flat is in the key of F. So when we say F major, we say, oh, very close, very close, very close. Very close. So we have the F here. If we said F major, we would be saying like F major, G minor. Now notice how the G minor has the note of the B flat. In the key of F, there's only one black key. That black key is the B flat. So when we play F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, all these notes, and then this note, those are our notes in the key of F. So every triad, when we skip a note and go a whole step, we have to play it as a minor, because a B major would make it F major, G major. That just doesn't feel right. So F major, G minor, A minor, B flat. When we go to our 4 chord, we have to have B flat major. There's no F sharp. There's no D sharp. Right? That just makes another chord. So what we have to have is those notes that utilize the notes that are in the key signature. So when we play in the key of G, there's 1 sharp. When we take every single one of these notes and move it back a half step, we find ourselves playing G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, D flat, E flat, F, then G. Oops, wrong note. G flat. So up here on the board is the real takeaway that we're getting to. How many are in the key of G flat? There are 6. How many notes in a scale? There are 7. Take away the 1. How many flats are there in G flat? Great. How many sharps are there? Ooh, I should change my finger. How many sharps are there in the key of G? The 1. The 1 note that was the sharp in the G major is now the only flat or only natural note. Now, the reason why we're not writing natural there, that looks a little confusing. But the idea is when you start writing in minors, you're going to be using one of 5 choices. You're either going to be using the natural, the sharp, or the double sharp, or you're going to be using the flat or the double flat. If you haven't seen those before, it's interesting. We use those with chord analysis. If you go above or below, there is no triple flat, there is no triple sharp. When you add a triple sharp or a triple flat, hypothetically, it becomes another chord. Therefore, it's not real. Do-do-do, or G flat. Yeah, G flat, 6 flatsaroos. It's okay. The idea with the reading of the G, everything stems from today's example. All the things that are up here in this brain, and for most of the people that I've met that play professionally, that teach professionally, college professors, there's just a curriculum and a staple that you do. You find out what all the triads are that are built tertiarily with 3. Minor third, major third that we've talked about. Major third. Minor third, minor third, major third. You start seeing these as being combinations. Those are our triads, our chords, our chordal unisons. And then when we do chordal analysis, we find that if we look at a grouping of chords like C, F, and B, they're family chords, meaning C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A. When we go through the process of being able to name each one of those, it makes this whole process of seeing how to go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and turning it into do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and going, ooh, I can hear, feel, and play the difference between a major third and a minor third. Knowing that that changes the triad into a minor, changes the tonality of what you're going to think. Oh, well, it's either going to be this mode, this scale, this thing. And believe it or not, the more you write it and the more you do it, it just becomes something that is secondary nature. That's just it. So, through this process, what we've learned in the key of G and G flat, we could use a mechanism. Each one of these work the same way. How many sharps and flats are in the key of E flat? None in C. 1 in F. That flat is B flat. There are 2 in B flat. B flat, and E flat. There are 3 in E flat, as you said, B flat, E flat, and A flat. So when you write that out, you can write out in the scale positions of having E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, and then you have C. Where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4. C minor. I love it. In fact, E flat is one of my favorite keys to play in. And then we have our diminished. How would you know what E major has? Not E flat major. You would write out the same notes, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. And then you would just take these. When you go up in nature, you are augmenting a note. So the note from its prime would go up a half. You could call it an augmented prime if you want. The concept is you're seeing where the 1, the tonic, the root goes whoop, the minor second up. When we go up a minor second from here, it becomes E natural, right? Well, when we go up from a natural, as we saw here, goes to a sharp. Therefore, we would have to add the sharp to each one of the natural notes here. Boom, 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 boom. There we go, folks. How many sharps and flats does the key of E have? It has 4 sharps. And the mechanism I do for either knowing this or learning this or teaching this or what I dream about, things I draw in my crazy room, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes in a chord. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Pick one of those. E flat has how many flats? 3 of them. Get rid of those 3. There are 4 sharps in the key of E. How many sharps and flats in the key of B? There are 5 sharps in the key of B. How many notes in a scale? How many flats are in the key of B flat? 2. Awesomeness. So what we're going to leave you on here today, unless anybody has any questions about how to form a triad, what a triad is, what the notes in a scale are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and more importantly, knowing that when you do not alter the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in any key signature, you're expressing yourself through a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's called the solfege. It's invented to be able to give singers, before the idea of notation, the ability to hear a tone, like go, and hear intervals. So in a group setting, it was much easier for a conductor to like look at somebody and go up a little rather than play around. I'm going to be scribbling my notes and try to learn by memory instead of just playing them by intervals. I'm going to scribble in my notes and try to learn them by memory instead of just playing them by intervals. What do you mean by intervals? Just going to try and scribble in my notes, learn them by memory. Yeah. I mean, if you just write out every note, I've done it before. It's crazy. It looks nonsense, and your brain might turn to mush, because here's what happens. There are hypothetical keys. I'm just going to write over it with our red here, and it might bleed through, and I hope this goes. But when we go through here, if I go this way and I do my sharps, I've got G. And then I've got D, A. Well, when I go here and I go to E, E goes through here. Let me rewrite this, actually. You do it the other way. C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp. Cool. And then if I went the other way with the flats that we just did, we would realize them as having F, B flat, E flat, A flat. The next one is D flat. Well, D flat and C sharp are the same. When we go to G flat and F sharp are the same. And then C flat's the same here. If we keep going in force, it just is what these are. But they're called hypothetical keys because we don't want to have to use double sharps or double flats. Does that make sense? So when we go to E, how about this? Let's go 4 notes from C flat. C flat, D flat, E flat, F flat. Well, yeah, absolutely. F flat is E. Makes sense, right? When we go over to the piano, here's an F. Here's an F flat. C, D, E, F, F flat. Well, F flat is an E natural. E sharp. Well, good golly gosh. That is an F natural. If we kept going, we would go all the way here. A, it becomes weird. F flat, G flat, A flat, B flat. Well, that doesn't make sense for A, does it? That's because it's B double flat. When we go here, B, C, D, E, E double flat, you betcha! See what I'm talking about here? There's no way that I'm going to be writing an E double flat. That's why we call it D major. If you go the other way and you keep going here, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp. Well, F sharp, G sharp. Boom. Circle O fifths, circle O fourths. G sharp, is an A flat. G, A, B, C, D. D sharp is an E flat. And when you get D, E, F, G, A, you can't just put an A sharp here. A sharp, B flat, they're fine. We can hear those chords as being that. But when you write them out, there's just many more things that look a little bit difficult to read while you're reading melodic minor in G double sharp. It's just, why would you think that? But there are some composers that write with that. Frankly, I find it arbitrary, and I haven't reached that level in my own music composition that I would ever need to use an arbitrary chord. Okay, so lastly, what we're going to leave off on here is how do you practice the practice of practicing? I say this almost with all my videos. I talk with it with all my students. The way you practice the practice of practicing is by getting a piece of paper, just like my man here, Inky Tech, just talked about. Just really don't think about it. That's why I think about slash chords. Yeah, slash chords are just a representation of chord chart leading, and then the same idea as a Roman analysis. When you have a chord like a D major and you put semicolons, that means you're doing chordal analysis. You might not know it, but all of our different clefs, like the treble clef, are supposed to have these two in here to show a clef. Treble clef is the G clef. No matter where you write the G, even if you write an uppercase G and write it down here, this is still the clef. You know what I mean? When you write the bass clef, you quite literally are putting the clef markers right after the F clef. So, long story short, chordal analysis happens when you see these colons. The next thing we would do is kind of look at a note in notation and say, cool, if this is in the treble clef and we've got these notes, how about boom, 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 boom. Here's our key signature because we're in the key of D. If we have this note, and then we have this note, and then we have this note, you would look at this and go, cool, what's my bottom note? Right on. G, F, E, D, C. Bottom line C here, ledger line, C, D, E, F. This would be an F. Key signature says it should be an F sharp. So our notes in notation are an F sharp, G, A, B, and then C, D. Sorry, that's kind of supposed to be on the line there. So we're looking at that. Do any of these letters make up a triad or a chord or a tonal value? And when we look at it, we say, well, what's an F sharp? That would be F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. Is that this? No. So that's out. How about A? We'll pick the A note. A, D, F sharp. Is that a triad? No. It should be A, C sharp E or A, C, E or A, C, E flat. No. So that's not a triad. Put D here. D, F sharp, A. Absolutely. That's a triad. What is that? That's D major. Cool? So if we take this and we put the D on the top, we realize that we now have the same triad, but we're using a different note for our first or starting note. This note happens to start on the third of the chord, and this is what we call a first inversion. If it started on the fifth of the chord, it would be called a second inversion. And lo and behold, if we had a fourth note to make a seventh chord, we would call it a third inversion. Now, this is a little above the pace, but since you said slash chord, I'm just explaining slash chords. We would look at this and we would put a D, because we're in the key of D major, and because this is an inversion, I would put a 6 here. That's how we do figured bass. That's called chordal analysis. If you have more questions about chordal analysis and how to actually judge these tones, you can see this if we were to take all these notes, like let's say we took this one and we put it up here on the F line, it would then change the tone quality of this and we would have a second inversion. If this is all pig Latin and foreign to you, guess what? You found the right channel. I hope that the way that I communicate is slow enough and it's effective enough that I take time to answer questions and that you enjoy doing this on Tuesday mornings. Can everybody that's still on this little bit of broadcast share this with somebody today? If not this long nonsensical diatribe about major scales, then just one of the videos on this channel. We're not monetized. In fact, I just do this because I really enjoy teaching. I enjoy my home base here in Hilo community, and 7,000 to 8,000 videos on a channel as a resource for the people that I teach here locally is a great way to spend the days. I hope that any of this really made sense. And lastly, as I said, I'm going to show you how to practice the practice of practicing. 1, write out your keys. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C. I don't write the 8th note or the octave because I know what it is. When I write them on a staff, I do. I draw the notes. 1, drawing notes is great practice. 2, I know that these are 7 notes. That's a diatonic scale. That's my 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. That's what I manipulate. That's how I do it. Thanks for the time. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Howard. So when we go to the next chord, we say C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp. Why? Because when we play the circle of fifths, C has none, which means C sharp must have all of them. C flat has all of them, all 7. So when we do the next chords, if I did C flat, I'd have C flat, D flat, E flat, F flat, G flat, A flat, and then B flat diminished. Boom. There's all my C's. Now, C flat, kind of a hypothetical chord. Not really, but it is. I would rather write in B major for myself. However, there are times, because of what we're talking about, the music you're going to write, it needs to be in a key that is representative of the notes you want to choose. You don't want to have a bunch of accidentals floating around there in your melodies. The next note we would go to after the C sharp is a C double sharp, which is ipso facto a D. D, if I were to just write these all out, D, E, F, G, A. I mean, honestly, you could write D flat here, E flat, F flat, G flat, A flat. But what happens here is when we're playing D major, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, we've got an F sharp and a C sharp. So if these are now our natural notes, these are all our flats. You see how D flat fits in here now? This is exactly what we were talking about. How do you practice the practice of this? When you go through seeing D sharp, and if you want to, you go E sharp, F, double sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, C double sharp. We have just experienced what it is to use all 5 of our states of being for our notes, because all notes can either be in their natural state, they can be sharpened, or they can be double sharpened. They can be flattened, or then they can be double flattened. When we see this, the way we practice the practice of practicing is go through all of this. And by the time that you get to chords like here that have double sharps, you will realize the validity of why you would want to use another key to explain this. And in summation, here's what that would be. If we had this, it's much easier to play E flat, A flat, and B flat than it is to play any of these double, triple kind of sharps. Or not triple sharp, they're not real. Double or single sharps. And then lastly, when we're doing all these keys, make sure that you have these double checked and you play them. You would sit down at your instrument of choice, no matter what that instrument is, and, oh, my back, neck and my back. First key, C flat major. When we do C flat major, yeah, it's a B. C flat major, B flat major. So going through the whole, D flat major, going through the whole thing, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, C. On ukulele, I just generally move them up and play the same chord structures. They're all just the difference of an F major, C major, G7, and an A minor. When you move those up and down to make the A minor to A major, you're just making major chord. Well, we have majors and minors and scales and one weird diminished. And that one weird diminished is generally always the same, unless you make it a full or a half diminished. We'll talk about that later. Going through here, the way we practice is knowing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. On any instrument that you have, you develop skill pattern to know exactly what muscle memory is. So when you play an E, you can say E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. When you play harmonies, you could go, oh, I like the sound of a 1 and a 3. I dig the sound of a 1 and a 4. That dissonance, unless it's a moving through passing note with resolution, it will sound weird. So what happens over a period of time, you give yourself the vocabulary to be able to use the notes you're already playing constructively. And honestly, when you get to a certain point of doing these, you use this mechanism to jumble this all up in your head. And I know it seems like it is this, like you're not able to process it right now. But the actual end result of like learning these notes is simply this. You eventually will be able to take this process of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as we were talking, let's say we wanted to do, I think the next mode we're going to be doing is the minors. So let me just put those out. When we play a 1 or a 6 chord in any key, let's use C, C, D, E, F, G, A. The C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B are the 7 notes of the major scale, represented by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. When you play from a minor standpoint, you're representing the A as the minor 1. Our next chord, in natural minor, which is what this is, exhibits us having the same tonal notes. So our B diminished would be the next note. Our major third is a C. Our minor 4 is the D. Minor 5 is the is the E. As you can see, have a 6 that's going to be major and a 7 that's a major. So, having said that, you can see how C major and A minor are the exact same. Going through our tones, the way we practice this is to go to your instrument of choice, and I'll show it here on the piano, and then I'll leave you with this. Everything in music analyzation is done through the eyes of the major. So to know what the minor is, you must know what the major is. To know what an A minor is, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. All these chords, yes, indeedy, they are in the key of C. However, we're viewing it through the eyes of A major. A major has 3 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. Which means when we play A major, B minor, when we have C sharp minor, D major, E major, F sharp minor, and then we have G sharp diminished, back into A. Those are the notes that we choose to make a major scale, a minor scale, and this is what I'm going to leave you on. As, or we flatten the 3, we flatten the 6, and we flatten the 7th. So when we write out the key of A major, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, flattening the 3rd, flattening the 6th, and flattening the 7 gives you the same key signature as C major. Next session, we're going to be talking about how to view natural minor, which is found in the key of the major as the 6th interval. The space as the 6th is considered a minor chord, although it is the major 6th of the key. When we talk about the minors, we will be talking about 2 other types of scales called the melodic minor and then the harmonic minor. Really hope you enjoyed today. If so, please pass this on to somebody else, and we'll see you soon. Any dying questions? Is modulations possible on thirds or not because of the chord changes? That again is a higher question because in music theory, what we're talking about is the root and the dominant. Everything needs to move through like a melodic major or minor harmonic progression, meaning almost every single song that you've ever heard, unless you're listening to like maybe some Frank Zappa or like Zuba Madoff or just something crazy out there. It generally tends to use the same function. Rock and roll, blues, reggae, jazz, heavy metal, they're all have little tweaks that they do, but it's all the same 7 notes that are just changed. So to answer your question, the 3 is called the mediant. It determines what is, I can't spell, mediant. It determines major or minor in the 1, 3, 5, absolutely. But when you add the additional notes, the extension notes, the Aug 5, the 6, the 7, stuff like that, you start to see that the 6 has a natural proportion. It's called the submediant. And to answer your question, I think I'm going to have to do another series because I've got a student I need to teach. Great question. Is the modulation possible on thirds? Maybe I'll connect with that on our minors, because in the minor motif, talking about a melodic minor and talking about a harmonic minor, we are going to be encompassing some double flats. So that would be the time to be talking about, are thirds, tertiarily speaking, going to alter the chord? It falls back on the 5 states of being: natural sharp, double sharp, or a natural flat and then double flat. Anything on the outside of that, triple flat, triple sharp, it's not real. Yes, it alters the chord, thusly making another triad or a sus or a 6 chord, or just something that's not based off the tones of the 1, 3, 5. And lastly, because music, you really don't need to have the 5. It's implied on most things. It's felt through the overtone series. What happens is a lot of progressions have the 5 in there, but the chords themselves, the triads that are used on any instrument, they're inverted for these inversions, or as you mentioned, the slash chords. Anywho, I really enjoyed today. Major scales are great. Get on your instrument of choice. Sing them out loud. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 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 Try to do your vocal exercises with your scale preferences. And inevitably, with the circle fifths, you will hear C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp. All of these silly notes will come to you if you work slowly, then speed them up, and then try to do them fastly. Fastly? I don't think that's enough. More resoundingly, a little bit quicker. When you can do it on your hands and you go C, D, E, F, G, and no G as one sharp, that sharp is F sharp, and are you able to say G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp? If you could put the sonority, the quality of these notes, meaning the tertiary, the major third and the minor third are the sonority of a major chord, 1, 3, 5. The sonority of a minor is a 1 flat 3, 5. So when you have G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, knowing what those notes are in each chord, that's what we use the circle fifths for. Being able to play that on your instrument of choice, whether it's your voice or physically your instrument, knowing these create these triads that we see in music stacked. That's what we're seeing as just being a harmonic kind of idea. When we have progressions, they become melodic and harmonic. Not just the notes, but actually where those notes lie in juxtaposition to the notes you just played. So the idea is we start slow and we move from there. Hey, I really enjoyed today. Everybody have a great day. Aloha, ahui hoi, and we will see you next Monday when I do a little bit of chart reading from some of my original stuff, or just meet us back here on Tuesday, 9 to 10-ish. Aloha.